One day I stumbled across Quan Millz' TikTok. Not really sure exactly how he ended up popping up in my feed. I think it was because at the time I was looking through stuff on Book Talk to find recommendations for books to read for the channel. And man, did I go down a rabbit hole. If you just pop his name into Google, your image results would look something like this. See such fantastic titles as Pregnant by My Granddaddy's Boyfriend, My Baby Daddy Stole My Tax Refund, Pastors Eat 2, or Pregnant by a Hood Alien. I got both my homeboys pregnant. Now, granted, a lot of these are joke titles that he has put up as fun, just messing around with AI. However, there is one that stood out to me that was very real. This hoe got roaches in her crib. By international best-selling author Quan Millz. So, what was it that actually got me interested in the book? Number one, he has a really bombastic personality. So, watching his TikToks just seemed like it was probably going to be interesting no matter what it actually ended up being about. So, did I really pay any attention to what the blurb was? No. To be honest, straight up ordered the book without even reading what the summary was. I decided that, you know what? I needed to read something outside my wheelhouse because my wheelhouse is about 90% horror and fantasy mixed together. Okay, so title is obviously kind of incendiary. This hoe got roaches in her crib. That's not uncommon for Quan Millz. He's very good at coming up with catchy titles. As a matter of fact, I have went ahead and purchased another book of his to read. It's called My Baby Mama is a Loser, also autographed from TikTok Shop. Now, I would say the title of this is the equivalent of clickbait. It actually plays into the theming in the book a little bit. There's oddly pretty serious connection with the title, but there's a few little breakaway moments, like some of the roaches are actually acting as secondary characters. Very brief. There's sort of things to break up some of the built up tension, because he's good at actually giving you a little bit of relief here and there after building things up for quite a while. But otherwise, the title, I would say, is literary clickbait. In other words, it's really bombastic and out there to get you to look into it. And then once you actually dig into the story, it pulls back the layers a little bit. And it turns out that very quickly you realize this is not just someone dicking around. It's not a joke. It's not parody. It's not anything like that. It is real melodrama along the lines of old school soap operas, except with an urban setting. Now, I know it's an urban fiction. Just for the sake of actually giving you some idea what's going on, let's read the blurb on the back. Austin Watkins, 35 and a single father, finds himself in a precarious situation. Currently locked up in Chicago's Cook County Jail, he knows that Fredquisha, the trifling mother of his only daughter, is a despicable, careless, and reckless thought, who is the antithesis of caring, loving black motherhood. Wanting to see her son gain full redemption from his current situation, Dolores Watkins, better known as Miss Watkins, is also hell-bent on rescuing Austin's 6-year-old daughter, Maya, from the clutches of a relentless psychological, emotional, and physical abuse that she suffers at the hands of Fredquisha. Hoping her son works hard to change the course of his life for the betterment of his daughter, Miss Watkins explores the possibility of challenging Fredquisha's custody of Maya. But as she navigates the complex, red-tape-filled bureaucracy of child welfare services, Miss Watkins decides to take things in her own hands and is willing to put her life on the line for the salvation of her granddaughter. Fredquisha Pierce, a native of the dangerous Englewood, Chicago, could give a two shits about the welfare of her child. Her mission in life is simple: get money, smoke good weed, and ride bomb dick. Nothing more, nothing less. After meeting a potential new bae, Fredquisha needs to make some lifestyle changes so she can upgrade her Section 8 squalor living situation. However, a looming pregnancy threatens to unravel her plans for a big come-up. One thing that isn't super clear from just casually browsing through Quan Millz' works is that they are generally episodic. Now, I would go so far as to say, while this may have originally been released as an episodic book, I don't know. I'm completely unsure. It's actually a pretty good size. The story's complete. Despite what the back says, the vast majority of the book really does just center around Maya. So it's largely a book that, if I'm being blunt, examines child abuse. There's other things in it and other aspects of particular lifestyles that are examined, but the other characters are really just acting as vessels to show what happens when a child's experiencing severe abuse and the ripple effects that that can have throughout their family, especially when people recognize that something's going on and are trying to fix the situation and struggling, especially against a system that is not built in a way that enables quick or effective ways of dealing with these types of situations. So there are cultural aspects to it that obviously, given how easily I reflect light, I'm not going to really be all that equipped to deal with or to understand. I do have some firsthand knowledge of what it's like living in an area that has a high rate of poverty, because where I live at, we do have a high rate of poverty. And I am actually a teacher. So I've had some interactions with social services and whatnot to varying degrees. Fortunately, I've never been in the position to have to report anything incredibly severe or as bad as what is happening in this book. But I am aware of things that have happened in my area. And even in a remote, rural, relatively small area, I've heard some genuinely horrendous stories of things that have actually happened. So I can deal with some of the frustrations that the characters are actually expressing in the book. I understand a lot of the themes in the book, and I do have a young daughter myself. She's getting ready to turn 4, so she's a little bit behind Maya in this Hogot Roaches, but it made it relatively easy to empathize with the characters that actually do want to help her and the ones that do care about her. And I'm not going to lie, that I did not go into this book expecting it to be as serious or even as well written as it is. Like, it is an incredibly well-flowing book, and this is going to sound like a very weird comparison at first, but it reminded me of the first time I read The Hobbit. So Tolkien, he kind of switched styles between The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings. Lord of the Rings is a much more detailed, just straight fantasy story, whereas The Hobbit had a much more casual feel to it. When you're reading The Hobbit, it's like you're sitting around a campfire and someone's telling you a story. Well, this Hogot Roaches in her crib is like you're hanging out with someone in a break room at work and they're just recounting some just horrible shit that's happened to them or that they've experienced over the last couple of days. So it's very much like you're standing there and having someone actually tell a story to you. And it flows really, really well. I was reading it on my Kindle because I was fortunate enough to actually get one of the signed copies of it, which I believe are probably still available on TikTok Shop. If you go to Quan Millz TikTok, you can probably still find the autographed copies up. Either way, I'm pretty sure it's also sold on Amazon, so whatever your preferred shopping method is. I got the signed copy, so I went ahead and bought the Kindle edition and read it on the Kindle. And I like having percentage displayed rather than page numbers. I was reading about 10 to 20% of the book a day when I picked it up, which is pretty fantastic rate for me here lately. That meant I was spending some extra time staying up to just progress through it. I actually ended up reading the last 2 or 3 chapters while my wife and I and all the kids were hanging out in the living room, and my daughter just happened to be occupied dancing while watching something on TV, which, if you actually read it, you'll understand why that made the last couple chapters especially interesting, being able to look up and see my daughter while reading what was going on. I don't want to give you spoilers because where this is a melodrama, one of the big things that it's built on is a nearly continuous flow of twists and changes in the story and changes in the action of what's going on. So any sort of spoiler can really screw up the rest of it. So if you're interested in it at all, I would recommend avoiding reading any sort of spoilers, because it won't take you long to get through it. And I would actually really, really recommend it. Are there some grammar and punctuation errors and stuff here and there? Yeah, there are not many. There are some, but I don't think they really detract away from it. Although, to be blunt with you, where I'm self-published, I tend to really just kind of overlook that. I don't think he is self-published. He actually probably has a decent number of people helping him at this point. But all those errors do is go to reinforce his arguments that he does not actually use AI to help him write his books. And I don't know that AI would be able to write a book like this. At the end of the day, the book was actually touching. It managed to bring a tear to my eye. So final thoughts. Highly recommend this book. Highly recommend just checking out Quan Millz stuff in general. He's a super entertaining fellow on TikTok. Seems like a really nice guy. Seems like he's got a good sense of humor and relatively down to earth. Who the hell knows, though? I mean, that's just the way someone appears on social media. I enjoyed that one. I'm going to read another book of his. I'm probably going to read a bunch of more books of his. I'm just waiting to see if anything else pops up that's signed. Supposedly, his next book, which I don't know if he's still joking or if this is legitimately his next book, because apparently people introduced him to the Omegaverse, and ever since then he's had some interest in really going off onto some odd areas. But My Baby Daddy is a bedbug. I can imagine if that is the title, will be about like this one, where it's a little bit connected, but not really super close. But either way, if that is the next book that he releases, I will be watching it. I will be reading it. Oh, and just to throw this out there, see what people think. My wife and I have talked about starting up a couples reading club where we take turns picking books. I've named this one as her first one that she has to read. So, would you guys be interested in having her put on the camera and share what her thoughts are on some of this stuff? Because I thought it might actually be fun to document us discussing our thoughts on the books that we've read together. Anyway, let me know what you think about that down below. That's it for the review. I hope you've enjoyed, and I hope you go out and pick up a copy of This Hoe Got Roaches in Her Crib. Have a good night.